Welcome back, and today I'm going to be making gluten-free pecan pie. And I've actually never done it before, but I have made pecan pie before, so I'm doing it for a nice lady at my son's work who's gluten intolerant, and so she provided me with the crust that she can eat, and I will show you. I've never done it before, but it says to take out 10 to 20 minutes before. So it's in the freezer first, and then you take it out and you let it defrost for 10 to 20 minutes. And I think I'm just going to stick exactly to the recipe. So I had to, that's on here. So I had to take this up and I had to read my instructions here. So I'm going to remove the, looks like wax paper. I got to be very careful because I've never done this before and I don't want to. I'm just going to get these ready to go, and then I'm going to start with my filling. So I assume you have to be kind of careful in doing this. And usually I make my crusts from scratch, and I've never done gluten-free, and she provided me the crust, so I said, okay, that's good, because I've never had any experience actually working with the other type of flour. So I'm going to set this aside. And then, so I would just recommend following the directions, and I hope it comes out. If it doesn't come out, I'm going to be upset with myself. So far, it's been about like almost 20 minutes. It's like 8 minutes shy of 20 minutes. And I don't think you want to let it completely defrost. I think that's part of the deal, I think. So I'm just following the directions completely because, like I said, I don't know. So I'm going to just set these aside, and I'm going to start with my pecan pie recipe. And the first thing I always do is before I'm going to measure these pecans, but the first thing I always do before I add any type of ingredient like this into a recipe, especially with nuts, is I always taste one to make sure it tastes good. Yeah, very fresh, very delicious. So I'm doubling this recipe because it came, I think she asked for 1 pie, but the crust came with 2, so she's getting 2 pies. And I'm doing a little over, let's see, I'm going to do, and I got too much, I'm going to do exactly 4 cups for a double recipe. So it'd be 2 for a single recipe. Got a little bit too many. I don't want to get carried away, so I'm going to set that aside. And then I need to, the next ingredient is 3 eggs. So I'm doubling it, so I'm going to do 6 eggs. And hopefully I don't get a lot of shells in. I will get the shells out in the end. And then I'm going to get the shells out, like I said, if there's any shells present, which I think there is. Okay, that's looking good. I'm going to go wash my hands with soap and water, and I'll be right back. Mix these up a little. And then I'm going to add my vanilla, because I always like to add my extracts to the eggs. So it's a teaspoon of vanilla, so I'm doubling the recipe, so it's going to be 2 teaspoons of vanilla. 1. 2. Okay, I have my oven just reminded me. I preheated my oven to 350. Set that aside. And then I'm going to, oops, I need to melt. Recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of melted butter, so I'm going to put in 4 because I'm doubling it, and I'm going to melt it in the microwave. on here, it tells you. It's not completely lined up, so you have to guess. That should really be over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 4. So that's half of the stick. I'm just gonna, oops, I want to be able to see. Okay, I'm gonna go like this. Do a half a stick, which is 4 tablespoons. I'm gonna go melt this in. Okay, now it is time to measure out the sugar. So I need, single recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar. So I'm doing a double recipe for it. So it is going to be 2 cups of sugar. I'm trying to move this back. No, that didn't work. Okay. I don't want you to see how I'm measuring this. Okay. There we go. So 2 cups of sugar. And I usually use the back of a knife to level this off. So when measuring sugar, you want to always level off your sugar with either a spatula or the flat end of a knife. So we got 1, 2 cups of sugar. Whoops, a little bit went flying, but I think that'll be okay. All right, just a tad. All right, so now I'm going to add my melted butter from the microwave, 4 tablespoons of butter. And then I'm going to go ahead, so we'll see what we got. We need the eggs. So I got I'm going to pour in the eggs and the vanilla. And then let's see where we're at on ingredients. So I have my 3 eggs, I have my sugar, I have my melted butter, and my vanilla. What I need now is Karo syrup and corn syrup. And it could be whatever brand you want. And it calls for 1 cup for a single recipe, so that's 2 cups. Now this particular jar is 16, so 8 and 8 is 16. So this is 2 cups already, which I love to buy it this way when I'm doubling a pecan pie, because I don't have to measure, because it's already been measured for me. I do have to take off the safety seal, so that might take a few extra minutes. So, and of course, from doing so many dishes, my nails are super soft. Okay, I finally got the safety seal off. Okay, so usually these aren't in glass anymore, so you can really just press it like this, and this is the 2 cups that you need for a double recipe. So I almost prefer to do the double recipe because I can not have to worry about measuring out the corn syrup. So while I'm doing this, just review again. Eggs, check. Sugar, check. Corn syrup, check. Melted butter, check. Vanilla, check. And now I just need to add the pecans. But before I add the pecans, I'm going to take this over to the mixer and mix this all up. And then I will stir in the pecans. I'm going to use this type of mixing tool. You would not want to use a dough hook, that's for dough, and you wouldn't want to use a whisk, that's for doing like egg whites and light and fluffy things like that. So I'm going to get this all mixed up. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at this and see if it's ready. Make sure nothing's sticking to the sides. It's a rubber spatula. I'm just gonna, it's not sticking. I'm scraping it just in case. And I think I'm just gonna run it just for good measure one more time. I'm gonna make this go first. I'm dripping on the counter, making a mess, but that's okay. 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 So now I'm going to mix in my pecans. And I like to mix it in with a rubber spatula and not with a mixer because it'll break up the pecans, and I like to have them whole. So just kind of mix them up as best as possible. And I want to do it thoroughly because, especially having 2 pecan pies, I want to make sure I have an even amount in both. In the meantime, The oven is going, of course, and thankfully I remembered to preheat the oven because otherwise I'd be waiting, because you never want to put anything you're baking into a preheating oven because it'll burn on top, so you don't want to do that. Okay, so this is ready to go into the pie crust. Move this over so everybody can see. Okay. All right, so I'm going to use, and I'm going to probably mix as I go along because I want to make sure I have an even number of pecans in each pie. That's the only thing when you do 2 pies, you really need to make sure that that's an even number. So I'm going to scoot this one over. Use the ladle. I'm going to start ladling in the batter. I spilt a little, that's not a problem. And these aren't as deep as what I'm used to working with, so we will see. I don't want them to go over the top, so I'm going to start doing my next one. I might be able to add some in there. Have to be like super patient because I don't want to make a mess here. And I don't want to go too high with this. I have to be very careful. And if I have extra batter, I'm just going to put it in a casserole dish and make some crustless pie completely for the family if I have too much, because I don't want to overflow these pies. So, trying to be like, because I know it puffs up slightly, so you just have to be very careful. You don't want to overdo it. That's the worst, when you have that mess to clean up in your oven and you don't want to mess them. So I think I'm just going to go a little bit, tad more. Almost see, there's almost just like a line of where you're supposed to go. So we're very, very close. A little bit more to this one. I think that one is good to go. And just a tad more to this next one. Just a tad more. Don't want to go crazy. And then what I like to see is I like to see that it's all even here with the pecans. Make sure that each piece has pecans. So I have a very small amount of this left, which I'm just going to put in some sort of, I'm going to try to go find my smallest container I can find for the rest of that. And there we go. So I'm going to pop these in the oven and we'll check on them as they go along. Okay, so I literally found the smallest little pie tin I can find, glass. And I'm going to put the rest of my batter, the leftover. I don't know where I went with my rubber spatula. I guess I'm using the spoon. Okay. I'm just going to scrape this as much as possible. Okay, in the meantime, the actual pies that I'm making, I'm going to add a couple of pecans in here because it looks a little shy. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very shallow, so it's not going to probably take nearly as long. It's just going to be for the family here. So So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but it'll taste good no matter what, I'm sure. It might not be pretty, but it'll taste good. So the regular pecan pies that I'm making that are in the oven now, I set a timer for 50 minutes. Usually it takes about 50 to 55 minutes, but I'll probably check on it halfway through and then we'll take a peek at that. So I made my little miniature crustless, very small, kind of like leftover batter situation, and we'll see. I'll probably taste that later. Okay, we're like about 20 minutes in. I'm gonna just check on it and just see how things are going. Let's see. Let's look at the oven. Oh, it's looking good. Can everybody see? Okay, there we go. Now what's on top is my leftover batter that I had that wouldn't fit. So that'll just be a treat later for us. But here are the other pies, and they're doing well, and we will check on them in a little while. Okay, so my little extra batter I had with no crust, I pulled that. And that'll be a nice little treat for later. But I am still waiting on the other pies. Take a peek. They're still cooking. There they are. And we'll be back shortly. Be patient when making pecan pies. It takes a while. So I'm going to peek inside the oven. And they look like, most people would think that maybe they're done. I'm having to grab a glove. I forgot to grab one. Okay. And they kind of look like they're done, but how you can tell that they're not done is you kind of shake it, and like when I pulled it out, it was still moving. I don't know if you can see that, but if they're still moving, it's not done quite yet. I'm going to pull them. And as you can see, they're not wobbly. Slightly wobbly, but they're going to finish setting up. But they're not like ready to overflow. We're not talking liquid. Okay, here's the other one. And I'm going to adjust the camera so everybody can see. There we go. And there are the pies. And I'm going to go ahead and just in a second, I'm going to taste test the one that had extra batter that has no crust on it. So I will see in just a second. So when I made this pie earlier, I had a little bit of batter left because the pie tins weren't as deep as I thought. So it's already cooled off. No crust, so low calorie. But I'm just going to taste test it. It's very shallow, so it cooked up really quick. So basically I have like a little bit of the batter and a little bit of pecans, but it'll give me the idea of how the inside is going to taste. That's really good. So I suppose if you didn't want any crust at all, you can just take a pie tin, put in the filling, bake it in the oven, and believe me, it's absolutely delicious. Hey Derek, you need to try this. It's delicious. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for those of you who subscribe to my channel. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe if you enjoy the content. It's free. Thank you for watching and have a great day.